Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of the Nighttime Fire podcast. This is a little bit different because I accidentally took a nap. Lucas wasn't able to join, and so it is myself, Thomas Hampton.
And David Bradford.
We're taking over for a real late night edition. It's currently 1:11 a.m. So we're definitely putting in the work to make sure that we get you the content that you deserve. And so to start our day off, we're going to talk about a good old day-over-day ranking changes. So, David, you stayed there up top. No switch. Tell me how you're feeling going in at 75% going into day 5.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident, especially after staying at the same percentage despite essentially changing my entire team yesterday.
It's definitely a bold move.
To be, but the fact that I'm still accumulating this many wins early on makes me feel good about my team.
Right. Well, let's take a look at this. It looks like Lucas took the biggest up of the day, going up 2. Myles and Drew down 1. Ben and Zunyon both up 1.
Yeah.
I went down 2, which is a little bit interesting, but it comes to the fact that me and you played today. We'll talk about that a little later, so I'm not feeling too bad about that. I think I'll bounce back real quick. But if we move on and take a look at the win-loss trends, or I guess the biggest gains and losses of the days, you see that Lucas took a nice up. Which
it came after Lucas. As we all know, Mr. 4-4. It broke through yesterday with a 5-3 win, but due to the foolishness of another human being, now he has constructed somewhat of a super team, and he saw the benefits of that today.
Yeah.
So,
do you think that you need to watch out? Do you think that you need to watch out at all?
No, because Lucas is still a choker. I established that when I made the guest appearance on your pod.
Right.
Lucas, it's in his DNA to choke. So I imagine he's going to do something within the next couple of days that will derail his team completely. And because, like I said, he rejected my trade of Steph. Then he lost to Zunyon by 1 point in the differential. So it's a matter of time before he plummets again.
Right. Now, how do you feel about the Quinn down again? He was down yesterday as well, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Quinn has had problems from the beginning, right?
Or I guess Quinn was even yesterday, but today was his big time down. We didn't expect him to go 4-4 yesterday.
Or I guess exactly. 3-5. He's had problems from the beginning.
Right.
He's had problems from the start. Like, even ignoring his lineup decision on day 1, we all thought that his draft was questionable at best.
Right.
Due to the volume of high usage players, you couldn't really get a sense of what he was trying to do. And I think we're seeing the consequences of that. Plus, he's not on the trade market at all, even though he has valuable assets that he could trade. He's showing no interest. I think he's rejected every offer that he's been given, obviously, immediately. Like, he doesn't even give it any thought. He just says no.
Do you have anybody specific that you think he probably needs to get rid of?
Man, I would say he probably needs to trade. You can't trade a player like that.
Who did you say? You cut out just a little bit.
Sorry, Paul George. I would say he needs to trade Paul George.
Makes sense.
Because I know there's GMs that are interested in Paul George. I think someone was telling me today that they inquired about him, but then Quinn said no, and that's a player he doesn't really need at this point. Right. I think Kyrie is also tradable. He's very good in the simulation, and taking him away, a high usage player, will give more shots to Giannis, which is what he needs. He needs to have his best player take the most shots.
Right. I get that. That makes sense. Now moving on just a little bit, go ahead and tell me about your games today, because today you were slated to play two. First against Bailey,
Yeah.
then against myself. So if you could tell me a little bit about that first matchup, if there's really much to say about it.
Yeah, honestly, I briefly considered starting my Jeff Greens and Smush Parkers against Bailey.
Okay.
Because I thought I could still win 5-3. Look, Bailey's a fraud. Okay, we don't need to stop pretend. We don't need to keep pretending that he isn't a fraud. You know, he had that 4-1 lead. He was 9-4 at that point. Then he lost out. He got swept, and he lost to me 7-1. And he's 1-18 in his last 19 games.
Dang.
So the dude is, I mean, wallowing away in misery. He's probably disappeared into the ether. You might not ever see the man again. You might not hear from him again. I'm worried about the guy. If there was a person who needed another person who needs to make a trade, it's Bailey, not just Quinn. It's Bailey. He needs to make a trade, and he's done essentially nothing on the trade market.
Right. Wow.
So my performance against him wasn't surprising. I expected to win at least 6-2. So
right.
I wasn't really
I feel
surprised
that.
at all there.
Now, what's a little tough is, I mean, I'm having a hard time because Bailey is a co-host of mine, and he's not able to be on here tonight to defend himself. But I also think that Bailey would agree that there's work to be done. I mean, I think it speaks for itself given the record, and so I don't think Bailey would be too offended with what's going on. I mean, he might talk about the collusion that we may or may not believe happened, but we'll get into talking about that in a little bit. But how about game two?
Sure.
That's me and you.
Yeah, I expected to beat you going into it, and I did 5-3. But it was a very good series.
Right.
And I think your team is like, okay, you haven't like popped off yet, but you don't get destroyed. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
It's like 4-4, 3-5 kind of thing. So you're kind of like always there. So I think if you make tweaks, I think you could probably make that a 4-4 series with me.
Right.
And you probably can beat people ahead of you in the schedule.
Right. I definitely have a little work to do. I mean, I'm sitting at eight teams make the playoffs, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, you are correct. 8 teams.
I think given my roster, I think I started off tough not having anybody to back up Charles Barkley. And so now that I've got Pau Gasol out there ready to take the reins when something goes down, I think my season only goes up from here because I've already played a couple tough opponents. And so
Yes, and do you want to talk about the thing that happened in our series?
Yes. So we'll go ahead and note that if there's any point in the podcast for you to listen to today, I think that this is the important part, because I think this is where things get a little dramatic, because all of you are going to be a little questionable about something, but I would argue that this is completely legal, and anybody who doesn't utilize this is just plain dumb. All right? I'm not saying you do this all the time, but I think it's all right to do this halfway through a series. After going 1-3 against David, I decided I was going to switch out Kobe as my starter and put Ginobili as my starter. But David, can you tell me how it kind of went down, if we're being completely open and honest?
Yeah. So the genesis of it was we were simulating, and I think it was, I had the box score in front of me. It was game 2. And I won this game 122-117. But one thing I noticed was that Kareem went 10 of 11 for you. Then Charles Barkley went 10 of 12. From 2 players, they made 20 of their 23 shots, which is incredible, right?
Right.
But then you look above them, and you see Kobe Bryant, 10 of 28 from the field, okay? So I looked at that, and I said, interesting. His best player, your best players are Kareem and Barkley. Those are your 2 best players.
Right.
And they are not getting up enough shots. And Kobe, who, rest in peace to Mamba, amazing player, not known for his efficiency and definitely known for jacking up a lot of shots, right?
Right.
So I said to you,
after
Thomas,
game 4 is when you say this.
No, actually, so what happened was I said this in the moment. I told you game 2, hey, this happened. And then you said, well, after game 4, can we do the last 4 games with Ginobili?
Oh yeah.
And I said yes, because again, like you said earlier, anyone has the ability to utilize this strategy as long as they're communicating with me during their simulation. Now, not everyone has time to do that,
Right.
but multiple players have been in our Discord when we simulate games,
Right.
so they can do this if they want to. No one's utilized it yet. No one's taken advantage of it yet, but you did. Now, will it work for you long term? That's a different discussion.
Right.
But I think it was wise to consider maybe I should play a lower usage player at that position so Barkley and Kareem can be highlighted more.
Exactly, and I appreciate you for calling that out for me, because you do get to see that on the box scores. Even though it was me and you playing, I think a little bit of you was really just doing your GM position and talking about what was going on. And so I appreciate that showing the impartial nature of you, even when you're playing me. But I think something quick to notice is that in the first 4 games, my 3 losses that I had, I lost by 20, then I lost by 5, then I lost by 18. 2 huge losses. And then after making that change, the most I lost by was 9.
Yeah, no, we had good games, right? Like it wasn't as if my team came to you and just slaughtered you.
Right.
So I think you making the change, I think the shots were distributed better, and it makes more sense, not just for Barkley and Jabbar, but for your whole team.
Right. So we'll see what can happen if there's tomorrow's the trade deadline, if I'm not mistaken. Now, trade deadline, is that before games are played or after games are played, and trades have to be made before game 6 starts?
So yeah, basically 11:59 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow is the trade deadline.
11:59 p.m.
Yes.
Sounds like a plan.
Even after the games are done, we can still trade. But once it hits midnight and then day 6 starts, it's done.
Okay, sounds like a plan. So I think that's a good thing for people to recognize. If you have the ability to utilize it and you're sitting there kind of hearing back and forth what's going on, I don't think there's anything wrong. I mean, do I think there's like somebody who might take it to a stupid extent? Zunyon, I don't know. But
for sure.
Well, we'll see what happens. But let's talk about what you'd like to call the game of the day. And we have Zunyon versus Myles.
Yeah. Heading into this, I feel like most people would have said Myles should win this series.
Given Chamberlain?
Given Chico Chamberlain, and given that Zunyon just has this fascination with self-sabotage.
Right.
And so I expected Myles to win this one probably like around 6-2, 5-3 kind of thing.
Right.
But Zunyon actually took this series, via tiebreaker by 1 point. He had a 4-3 lead, and I believe it was an 18-point differential heading into Game 8. And Myles won by 17. He was up by 20 with about 5 seconds left, and then one of Zunyon's smush Parkers made a 3, which
it's ridiculous.
Gave Zunyon the series. But mainly it's the game of the day because it was a stunning turnaround for Zunyon, who had been swept the day before by me, who had dropped Steph Curry. So really, the momentum was going way down for him, and then suddenly he turns it around.
Right.
And now he has a legitimate team after trading. So Zunyon's back in this thing.
Yeah, and I'll still hop on the train that even if Zunyon's team does this every week, this 4-4 ordeal, it could pull him into contention. If I'm looking at worst teams in the league that teams that I think have the highest probability of not making the playoffs are probably Quinn, Bailey, and Trey's a toss-up up there if he's going to finish in that 8-9 position. I think if Zunyon didn't play against a really weak Week 1 Quinn team, I think Zunyon still falls in that area. So I think he got a crutch to lean on Week 1.
Yeah, that 7-1 start really helped him. But yeah, just real quick, some numbers from this. So Zunyon took a 4-1 lead, and in those 5 games, what really killed Myles was the performance of James Harden. So in those 5 games, he shot 27 of 79, which is 32%,
Oh my
and
God.
average nearly 5 turnovers per game. So uh, Harden did Harden things in those 5 games, and that kind of put him in a hole that he almost dug himself out of, but not quite good enough
But
for Myles.
1 point too short.
Yeah, exactly. So, but Myles still has Chamberlain. He still has Olajuwon. So he
Awesome.
doesn't have too much to worry about, but he might have to make some tweaks.
Right. Yeah, I think Myles would be fine for playoff contention, even after this interesting loss to Zunyon on tiebreaker. And so,
Yeah.
moving on, I think another hot topic of the day was
Yeah.
what had to do with Trey and myself. If you listened to the podcast yesterday, then you're well aware that yesterday Trey and I played our game, High Tension,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
the series started off with Trey winning 4 games and blowing a 4-0 lead, only to come down to, like, obviously I say blew the lead, so we know that he didn't win. But coming into game 8, Trey had a 12-point lead, I think it was.
Yes. Yeah,
And I
12-point
won
lead.
and I won game 8 by exactly 12 points, leaving the game at a dead even split.
Yeah. Yeah. That was incredible.
And so you'd think, wow, how could that get any crazier? Well,
Oh
after
man.
after taking a look at the box scores, which let me go ahead and pull something up real quick. I've got them right here in front of me. I noted that I wanted Pau Gasol to play 8 minutes, and I wanted Charles Barkley to play, I think 40 is what I listed it as. All right. And
Something
so
like
you
something like
would
that, yeah.
assume that Pau Gasol would play far less minutes than Charles Barkley, and Charles Barkley would be the no doubt starter every single time
Yeah.
and play far more minutes. Well, in 8 out of 8 games, Pau Gasol played more minutes than Charles Barkley, which I was a little confused. So we'll start off, and I'll go in order of Pau Gasol, then Charles Barkley. And we'll note Charles Barkley was the starter in every game, but it was 28-25. It was 34-27. It was 30-15. It was 29-14. It was 32-16, 30-18, 24-17, 31-14. Every single game, Pau Gasol playing more minutes. And when I
And
noticed that,
you still drew the series.
right, and I still drew the series, and Pau Gasol played more minutes than Charles Barkley. I think it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I think that
Yeah.
speaks volumes to the fact that Trey was overconfident in his team coming into
Yeah.
that. Trey talked about
Yeah.
the fact that he had a team that was going to 8-0 sweep me.
Yeah.
And I drew
he talked a
without
lot
my
about that.
number 2 or number 3 pick, Charles Barkley, definitely the number 2 player on my team.
Number 3 pick, yeah, something like that. But yeah.
And I
Yeah,
dead even split Trey.
Yeah, I remember when he was talking to me, he said, I have a simulation against the team that you had, and he was assuming Barkley would play, and he said he still swept you. But didn't he say, like, afterwards that the lineup he used against you was
Wasn't
not
that
the
lineup,
one?
which doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't you use that lineup? I don't buy it. But
Yeah,
but
who knows what he's doing
so
there.
this morning, quite early, it'd be far too crazy to go into them, into the messages. But I talked with David on the Discord, talked about my concerns. I feel like maybe there was just an accident putting minutes in, because there's no reason.
That's not what you said at first. That's not what you said at
I
first.
called it collusion because I think it's collusion. I'm still convinced it's collusion. I was just going to preserve your feelings on the podcast.
Okay.
But
Okay,
yeah,
just suppress the truth.
since we already went ahead and brought out the weasel real quick, yes, there was definitely collusion. David definitely rigged my matchup against Trey to make sure that Charles Barkley didn't play the minutes I deserved, so that Trey
Yeah.
could talk mad smack on the first take.
Yeah, yeah, even though I quote unquote did that, you still ended up in a dead even tie.
Which I think speaks volumes to how trash Trey's team was.
Yeah, it speaks volumes to how your team might be underrated and just how horrific Trey is.
Exactly. So,
I mean, horrific.
given that, I made a protest in the group message stating that I feel like I deserve a resimulation because there's no real reason why Pau Gasol should play more minutes than Charles Barkley 8 out of 8 games, given my minute breakdown of 40-8 in Charles Barkley's favor. So,
Yeah.
David, you talk about, this is more than likely an accident. I consider it collusion. That's, he said, she said. But we resimulated the matchup.
Yes.
And we got the 5-0 vote to start out, which passed the motion. I needed 5-3, so I think it ended in a 5-3 vote, maybe 6-0. So I got everybody in my favor, and we resimulated the matchup. It would erase the previous, and whatever simulated here was going to retro. We were going to use the original lineups with my original minute breakdown I gave to David. And at the end of the day, I started off 1-0, then 1-1. 2-1, 3-1, 4-1. 4-1 was looking grim for Trey. Trey was literally so nervous he wasn't talking.
The silence was hilarious. The dude was shook.
He thought he was about to get 7-1. He thought there was a chance. And then Trey won his home game to now be down 4-2.
4-2.
He won an away game to be up to be down 4-3, and then I won the final game on the away court.
Yeah, and you won on a Kobe Bryant 3-point shot.
Yeah, which I think is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, but it was incredible. Because didn't Trey have the edge in point differential going into that?
He did. He had a 3-point advantage.
So it was for the series, essentially.
Exactly. So if Trey won the game, Trey won the series. If I won the game, I won the series, is how it was rolling. Because Trey already had the point differential going into the last game.
Yeah, and in that game, I just want to say Barkley, 30 points, 15 rebounds, 14 of 18 shooting, 5 blocks.
Yeah.
So pretty good.
And how many minutes did Barkley play in that game as a reference?
48.
All right. How many did he play in the game before?
He played 47.
Okay, so accident or collusion, one way or the other. I think it's pretty obvious that there's just a mess up in the minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious because it would make no sense otherwise.
Right. And so, be it the way it happened, I'm pretty satisfied with 5-3 victory. Puts me over Trey, allows me to put Trey in the dirt. Just let him know exactly how I feel about his team and tell him that him talking about him going 8-0 on me was a bunch of bull. I took the dub. Thank you very much.
Yeah, at this point, I'm really worried about his mental health.
Right. So we'll leave that at that. Going into another hot topic of the day, we had an interesting motion by the commissioner. Not even a motion, a demand.
Yeah. You want to just go ahead and start explaining it? Yeah, so I was sitting there thinking, it really sucks that Steph Curry is a free agent and no one can get him. He's a great player, the greatest shooter in NBA history. So I said, you know what? Let me add some juice to this. Let me add some juice to this league. I'm going to make an executive decision that Steph Curry will come back to our league. And I decided the most fair way to do that was to, one, eliminate myself as a potential Steph Curry recipient. So there's no way I could get him. And then to do a sort of weighted lottery kind of thing where the worse your record was, the higher percentage chance you had of getting him. So I put down a total of 100 names, and the worse your record was, the more times your name popped up.
Right.
So, for example, Bailey and Quinn were tied for last. They each had 24 entries into this. So both of them took nearly half of the entries. So, they have a higher percentage chance. Bryce, who was in second place, had 1 entry. So the chances of him getting Steph Curry was 1 in 100. I thought that was the most fair way to do it.
I would agree.
I didn't want a team that was already really good to get Steph Curry. That was like kind of the
even by like
mission,
crazy chance, yeah.
Yes. So I made it as I tried to tip the scale towards the lower end teams as much as I possibly could, and what ended up happening is that the man who dropped Steph Curry, Zunyon, who is the most infamous member of this league, ended up winning the Steph Curry sweepstakes. He won. He got Steph Curry back. And he also and picking Steph Curry up dropped Pete Maravich, the player he picked up when he dropped Steph Curry. And I have insider information from my sources that Zunyon is going to actually bench Steph Curry. So he trades for this guy, he drops him, he wins him back, and then he benches him. I mean, what else? He hates this man. He hates that guy.
It's wild. I don't believe it. I think Zunyon says a lot, but I don't think he's going to do it. I think he realizes that he needs to come in at least 5th place so that he doesn't have to dye his hair. That's my 2 cents.
I mean, he also could be using him for ammunition in a trade, right? So
likely
because Curry, there's one day left. Teams are going to get desperate, and someone will want Steph Curry. So
right. So
yeah, but that was that. Yeah.
Tell me about the Trey versus Lucas mega trade.
Oh, okay. Look, this trade infuriates me. One, because I'm still salty that my MJ for Larry Bird trade got rejected. And that trade was rejected based on pure emotional reaction. I've been making trades and I've been dealing all day. My lineup was reinvented, and frankly, everyone got scared because I was doing things that people could not predict. So that trade gets rejected, and then Trey and Lucas are kind of lurking in the shadows, working on this big deal, and Trey makes a trade with Zunyon, which then sets up this trade with Lucas, where Lucas got CP3, Kevin Durant, and Rudy Gobert.
Did this happen before games were played today?
This happened last night after games were played.
So these teams were played today.
These teams were played today. And then Trey, I think he got LeBron.
He got LeBron.
He got David Robinson.
And is it Isaiah Thomas or Isaiah Thomas?
He got it's pronounced Isaiah Thomas. It's from the 80s, from the Detroit Pistons.
How is this Isaiah if it's ISIAH?
I mean, I've never heard anyone pronounce it Isaiah. So,
Isaiah? I have to picture it's not Isaiah.
They call him Isaiah Thomas. Well, IT. His nickname's IT, so let's call him IT.
Okay.
And my issue with this trade was that, in my opinion, it turned Lucas into a super team, and Trey's team went from already being bad to slightly worse.
See, when I originally saw the poll, which, by the way, I've vetoed every single trade. So I vetoed this one. I didn't even look at it.
Yeah.
But I thought Lucas was losing out just because I saw LeBron in there, and then I forgot that Kevin Durant and Chris Paul were out there. I mean, Rudy Gobert is another really good player.
Yeah.
In the sim. But Chris Paul, I think Chris Paul was the biggest pickup for Lucas.
For sure, because he already had Kevin Garnett on his team, right?
Yeah.
And then you see the results today. Trey, I mean, he plays Bryce. But the whole point of making that trade was to make his team better. He loses 6-2. Meanwhile, Lucas, and he's playing Quinn, so we have to qualify that. But he plays Quinn, beats him 7-1.
Right.
And so, now
we have to note the fact that Lucas won every game outside of a couple by double digits.
Yeah, he destroyed
97
Quinn. I think
point differential.
It might be the biggest of the season, I think, at this point. So it's not that he just beat Quinn; he demolished Quinn.
Right.
And so I think my feelings were validated that this trade was not balanced. And I think Trey just kind of screwed himself. And I think Lucas now is a powerhouse because of this trade.
Yeah. Let's move on and let's talk for a second about some power rankings.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and pull these up. We've got Trey's power rankings on the day.
Yeah.
Let me pull these up. I want to see if I can put them side by side to the actual rankings. There we go. We're going to put them on the left. All right. So, for the most part, Trey followed the actual rankings today, which in the past, Trey's been absolutely garbage at putting together power rankings. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
Yeah.
No,
it's facts.
And I want to note that Trey put a sad face next to his name at number 9. I don't know why it's a sad face. It should be I don't know, a normal face, like a this is what I expected face, because I don't think there's any reason we should be surprised that Trey's at number 9.
Yeah, he drafted a losing team, and he is a losing team.
Exactly. And so, I mean, I understand Quinn being a sad because he had Giannis and went down. Bailey listed as big sad. I understand that.
Very accurate.
I like that he put me over Zunyon. I think I would take Zunyon's team out real easy. I mean, I think I'm 5'3" minimum. He put
I would agree with that.
He put Ben over Drew, which their teams were tied at 50-50. So that's whatever it might be. And then everybody else was exactly where they were supposed to be. And so I think he understands that my team's better than Zunyon. So that's the one big up that I'll give Trey in this power ranking. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, if I were doing this, I would do Lucas 1, Bryce 2, me 3, and then Ben 4, and Myles 5. That would be my top 5.
You put Ben 4?
Yes, that's what I would do. And I think Trey should be dead last. I think he gave himself too much credit at number 9. Because not only did this man just lose games like it was nothing before that, but then he traded away his entire team and got worse.
Right.
At least we could say with Quinn that, Quinn he hasn't been as active, so he's kind of just taking it as it goes.
Right.
Trey is actively trying to get better, and he's getting worse.
I think it's safe to say that Trey is the more simulations that Trey does, the worse he gets. I don't know if he's still doing simulations, but
yeah, that's why I call him Mr. 1000 Simulation, because that dude runs simulations, and he's just finding unique ways to lose more.
Right.
So
it's definitely an interesting one. So to end this off for the day, first off, I want to appreciate you for being on here. I appreciate you taking the time. It's 1:42
I'm
now.
honored.
We've had a long podcast so far. We're sitting at almost 32 minutes. Shout out 32.
Yeah.
Right. Inside joke. If you know it, you know it. If you don't, you don't. I need you, like we always do, I need you to pick your best team in the league, your wild card in the league, and then how you're going to perform in your game tomorrow versus Myles.
Yeah, so best team, I think, is Lucas now.
Given the trade.
Changes it. Given the trade and given just his domination today, I would say Lucas is the best team. Wild card, I'm going to go with kind of a crazy opinion here, but I'm going to say Zunyon is a wild card because we don't know what he's going to do with Steph yet, and he actually has some legit, superstar level players on his team. He has Karl Malone now. Trey's going to probably regret letting him go. And then as for my performance against Myles, I think I'll beat Myles 5-3. The only matchup I'm worried about for me is how my combo of Joakim Noah and Nikola Jokic would do against Hakeem and Wilt Chamberlain. In real life, they would get absolutely murdered, and it'd be a slaughter fest. But in the simulation, it might be a little closer due to advanced statistics. But I still think my total starting lineup just shoots more efficiently and is better defensively. So
right.
I'll go. I'll give you the 5-3 win there.
You're saying Myles is getting a 5-3 win, or are you talking about my game?
I'm getting a 5-3 win.
You're getting a 5-3 win?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So I'm going to take it now. Best team in the league. I have a hard time picking between you and Lucas. I think people are skeptical about your team. And we said it yesterday. We had to defend ourselves this morning. We said on yesterday's podcast that we didn't pick you as the best team in the league because we didn't know how yours was going to perform, and that's why we picked somebody else. Just gotta clarify. That's what all three of us said.
It makes logical sense, but screw you guys.
Right. So I think I'll agree with you, and I'll pick Lucas. I do think the trade was unfair looking back at it. I mean, I vetoed it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I think Lucas is probably the best team in the league right now. I think the wild card. You said Zunyon's the wild card. I think the wild card that nobody's worrying about is Ben's team, and let me tell you why. So Ben took a week 1 loss to Lucas, who I think already had a decent team. All right.
Yeah.
Week 2, or I guess day 2, he took a 6-2 loss to you, and you had the best team in the league at that point. A 6-2 loss.
Still do.
Huh? Still do?
Nothing.
Still do? Okay.
Yeah,
I think Ben had a really tough matchup week 2, and so I think it's hard to say, oh, Ben at the time at the end of week 2 was in last place in the league. All right, he was down. He went 4-4 week 1. Then he was down 12.5% at 37.5 win loss. After the next week, Ben was up from 37.5 to 45.83. He was the third best gain of the day. He went up 3 spots in the rankings. And then after today, where Ben goes, and what was Ben's results on the day?
He won 5-3 against Drew.
And I feel like Drew has a really solid team. For Ben to be listed at the bottom of the league and then to come back up, and now he's chilling at 50%. I think Ben's going to make his way up, and I think Ben can land a third-place spot by the end of the season. And so that's my wild card.
Yeah, just a couple quick points on that. One, Ben, he knows what he's doing. He drafted really well. And number 2, when you have the John Stockton, Shaquille O'Neal combo, you're going to win games.
Right.
So Ben's legit for sure.
Yeah. And so my game tomorrow, I play Drew. And I think given Drew played a weak Zunyon team, winning 5-3 in week 2. Week 1, Drew played Bryce. Drew beat Bryce early on, which is good, but I think Bryce made the best free agency trade, so I think that's what makes Bryce's team so versatile.
That was Paul Pierce Bryce at the time.
Right. And so Drew today loses 3-5 to Ben.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm an underrated team. I think with my Ginobili switch, I think I take it 5-3 on Drew minimum.
I agree.
So, yeah. I mean, are there any other points that you want to talk about before we go ahead and hop on off?
Yeah, just real quick. Dwayne Wade put up 56 points in a game. Just want to give a shout out to him.
Shout out to Dwayne Wade, our player of the day yesterday. We got Chef Curry cooking up here up top. Just because he made his way back into the league, we feel like it's important to put him up there. Past that, David, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's real late, but you were here for the content. We're chilling here at 37 minutes, so we'll go ahead and get back at it, and I'll get this out to you guys as soon as possible. Peace.
Peace out.